Hi, welcome back to the Growing Gains podcast. I'm Grace, your host, and today we have Jason and Enoch. So, can you guys give us an introduction?
Okay, hi, I'm Jason, and I studied IB at SPCC. I got a PG of 44, and I'm going to Cambridge to study natural sciences, the biological natural sciences, since there are two specializations, physical natural sciences and biological sciences. I had a conditional offer back in January, February, which was 42 marks for my final IB exam with 7 in chemistry, higher level, 7 in mathematics, AA, higher level, and a 6 in my remaining HL subject, which was economics. And I also had to satisfy IELTS conditions. I remember it was 7.5 marks overall, and I had to prove that I was financially able to support my course at Cambridge. Yep, and I am going to study at Magdalen College, which is a college with a lot of friends and people I know, and I chose that college mainly for that reason.
Hi, I'm Enoch, and I also studied DSE at SPCC. Now, bear with me because this is extremely complicated. So, because I take the DSE exam, so I have 8 subjects. So, I actually received a conditional offer for medicine also in January, and the conditional offer is for mathematics, double star in mathematics, compulsory part.
5 double stars?
Yes,
okay.
5 double star, yeah. And then 5 single stars in physics, chemistry, and biology. And then for the rest of the subjects, which are Chinese, English, liberal studies, and module 2, because I take the module as well.
Math module 2.
Yes, sorry. Math module 2, I should be more clear, right? Yeah. They need level 5s from me. I think partly the reason is because probably my predicted grades are relatively high. Yeah. I also opted for Magdalen College as well. We can talk more about it, the choice later on.
College mates.
Yes.
Yay! Okay, are you done?
Yes.
Okay, great. And then first question would be, how did you choose what you wanted to study?
So I study biological natural sciences, and I've always loved science, even as a kid. So when I was small, I wanted to be an astronaut, but right now I feel like science is the path for me. And I see science as a way for me to understand how the world works, especially from a biological perspective, how humans work and how humans interact with the environment. And I feel it's a way for me to understand myself. And it's also very good as a career path, and Cambridge provides this excellent course called Natural Sciences, where you have the flexibility to study different aspects of science, so physics, chemistry, biology, even other subjects such as geology and even computer science during your 3 years at Cambridge, which makes it very attractive for me because I'm interested in all aspects of science and different types of knowledge, and I hope to take my time in Cambridge to discover where my passion lies, and I feel like natural sciences is the ideal course for me.
Yeah, like Jason, I also really do love the sciences. I knew this when I was in Form 1 and Form 2, and so that's partly the reason I chose all of the science subjects in the DSE. But I feel like just doing the sciences isn't quite enough. Medicine, people always say, oh, it's a fusion of science and humanities, because you have to interact with patients, you have to have a empathetic heart, but at the same time you have to have these scientific critical thinking as well. And so I do think because of this reason, I can apply these core biomedical principles in our patient interactions. So I'm very attracted to this field. Well, I think the most important thing is to, don't just assume you like that subject. You really have to do a lot of activities to confirm your passion. So maybe work experience, or a bit of reading, or actually watching YouTube videos as well, to understand the realities of being a doctor before you make a final choice. Yeah.
So for Enoch, I know you're going to be a doctor in the future, but how about Jason? Have you thought of any career paths, and was that also contributing to why you chose to study natural sciences, the natural sciences?
Right now, I hope to become an entrepreneur in the future, and as an entrepreneur, there are different aspects. So you have to have knowledge over your product, which I believe will be a biotech product. So the course at Cambridge will give me the flexibility to learn different things about these subjects and about the potential product I will sell or produce in the future. And at the same time, Cambridge provides this management tripos. After you graduate from the natural sciences course, you can add, like it's like an add-on, you can add another year of management onto your course for the fourth year, and you'll graduate with 2 degrees, one in management, one in science. And that's also very attractive for me as an entrepreneur. And thirdly, the terms in Cambridge are relatively short, so you will have a lot of time where you don't actually have school and there's only one exam at the end of the year. So during those long, lengthy holidays, I will have the opportunity to conduct internships or research opportunities, which would be very flexible for me and would definitely help me in my future career path.
Okay, moving on. So now you've chosen your major. How did you choose which university you wanted to attend and also which college in specific?
So for me, I chose Cambridge because it's the origin of modern science. So Newton came up with calculus and his laws of gravity there, and Stephen Hawking thought about black holes right there in Cambridge. So I feel like I gravitate towards this sort of a holy place for science students, and Cambridge actually provides a lot of funding to scientific research. And I'm also very attracted to Cambridge's new science park right next to Cambridge, which is being constructed right now. And as an entrepreneur, that is very interesting to me. So for my college, Mauchline, I chose Mauchline because I will feel very at home there because there are a lot of friends. A lot of my friends I know go to Mauchline, some from previous years, some from this year, and I feel like it's a very important reason and aspect for my school life to have friends around me that I know, but at the same time I can still venture out and make new friends in the UK.
Yeah, I actually went to kind of a summer camp in Form 2 to Cambridge, and then I just kind of had like these academic discussions with the tutors over there, and I just found, it's actually a very like intellectually stimulating place. And so I decided that, okay, so probably this is the environment I want to be in during my tertiary studies. And well, partly there's this prestige with Cambridge, of course. This also attracted me as well. But I think the main reason I chose Cambridge, or maybe over Oxford, is because in the medicine course, they actually have a cadaveric dissection. So they have a cadaver for you to dissect in Cambridge. And this is also one of the reasons I chose other universities as well, like King's and Glasgow. That's because they have cadaveric dissection. So it played a very major role in my final decision. And for Mauchline, same as Jason, I also do think that there's a very strong support network, especially we have a lot of seniors in SPCC at Mauchline College. So I feel like, okay, even in an unfamiliar environment, I still have someone there to kind of understand maybe my struggles because they are from the same school, yeah.
And for Enoch specifically, aren't you worried that you're going to have to are you going to like practice medicine in Hong Kong or in the UK?
Well, I think at this moment I'm going to keep an open mind because, well, I still haven't experienced the clinical placements over there, so I can't really make a judgment or decision now. But I think at the moment, my tendency is to come back to Hong Kong because I do think, as a Hong Kong student, I go to UK, and I think it's best to serve, of course, Hong Kong people.
Yeah, but aren't you worried about the conversion test, or is there one, and how hard is it? Yeah.
Well, previously there is such test, but I think in the past few months these conditions have been relaxed. Actually, they have a list consisting of the different universities that Hong Kong recognizes. So that Cambridge, of course, is one of these universities. So if you've studied your medical degree in that particular university and you've completed an internship in that country, and then when you come back to Hong Kong, you don't actually have to sit the licensing examination. So it's actually a much more smooth pathway now. So for Hong Kong students, we can actually consider UK or even US medical schools, and you can really come back to Hong Kong without the need of sitting the licensing examinations. Yeah.
Great to hear. And then the next question would be, so what did you write your UCAS essay on?
So for my natural sciences essay, since our UCAS essay has to be submitted to all 5 schools, like you apply to, or like in general, just any number of schools you apply to, you have to think about whether your single essay can apply to all 5 schools. So in my case, all of my schools were biology related. So I talked about some of the books I've read in the past and what made me motivated to study biology at a tertiary level. I remember I talked about some of my internship experiences and my research experiences, which were strictly confined to biology-related activities. So for example, I had an internship at a medical firm. I also did research on some biotech products. We developed a sunscreen which was using lignin-related plant-based materials, and I talked about that, and I feel like that was very important for me, which inspired me to learn biology when I go to university. And I think it's very important to trust your further studies counselor because they give very good advice, and it's important to be on time or even submit your drafts to your counselors in advance so they can help you look at your essay and pick out any errors and see if there's any way to improve. So in general, everybody has to make 3 to 4 drafts before it's actually good. And I think it's really, really important to plan ahead and prepare your essay as soon as possible.
Yeah, you really do need 3 to 4 drafts actually, because our counselor actually told us to hand in our first draft in March, right? And then you're going to have to continue to revise it and edit your personal statement. So it's good to start early. Yes, as Jason has said just now, we have 5 options for the UCAS. For medicine, it's a bit special because they want to ensure that everyone kind of has a place to go after their A-levels. So they actually only allow us to have 4 medical school choices, and the 5th choice is reserved for something that is not related to medicine. So in my application, I opted for biomedical science, which is very similar to medicine. So I do believe that most of the medical applicants do also apply to, like, say, pharmacy or biomedical science or any sort of science that is related to medicine. Regarding my personal statement, of course, you have to tell people your desire to, the reason why you want to study medicine. So your maybe your inspiration, maybe you had a personal experience, personal encounter that kind of inspired you to go into the field of medicine. And I also talked about my work experience. So I was very grateful that I was able to arrange some work experience with doctors. So one in ophthalmology, one in general surgery, stuff like that. And so the most important thing is to reflect on the experiences. So after each activity, you must do a kind of a full reflection so that you have something to say in your personal statement as well as something to say in the interview as well. Yeah.
Great. And I don't know if this is for humanities only, but me and my friends, we were all applying for law or human, social, and political sciences. We had to go through 7 to 10 or even 12 drafts. So yeah, that's also normal. Yeah.
It's probably, because for these subjects, they really look at your grammar. But for science, of course, they expect you to have a high level of English. But yeah, just don't make any mistakes. And yeah.
Great. Okay, and then the next one would be, how did you write your essay? So did you have any books that you mentioned, which were from the reading list or not from the reading list? And did you do any other research in general?
For my subjects, some books are overcited and overmentioned. So for example, Darwin's book about evolution, it's always mentioned. So if you mention that, everybody will just know that you're reading for the course you're applying to. So don't do that. try to find some more specific and more professional books. So for example, in my case, I talked about immunology, and I actually read a lot of books about immunology. So different course books and some research papers, and I put them in my essay. So be sure that you have really read these books, because in my interview, which we may talk about later, they really asked us about what we wrote in our personal statement. So that's very important. Make sure you read the books you wrote in your personal statement and make sure they are special enough. And one more thing about the essay is that only write things that are strictly related to your course and the information you want to provide. So, for example, I had some other competitions I won or my business ventures, but I did not talk about those in my essay, although those may be some of my most important achievements in high school, because it won't work and the professors won't understand what you're talking about and they will just skip over that section. So there's a word limit for UCAS. I'm not sure if it's like 600 or
It's a character limit. I think it's a character limit.
So there's this limit, and use your words wisely, because you only get this chance to show the professors who you are and what you have a passion in before your actual interview. So just write about the things that are related and don't waste words.
Yeah, I think for the US applications, you can correct me if I'm wrong. I think there's a lot of like maybe ECA, you will talk a lot about your ECAs, right?
Yeah.
But for UK applications, well, especially for Cambridge, they don't really care, to be honest. So I kept the ECA part of my personal statement very short, so it's just maybe 2 to 3 lines. So I played piano, so of course I talked about it, and I did some volunteering, so I talked about it as well. But it's just keep it short if you really want to focus your application to Cambridge, because they really don't care. They just care about any research that you have done, your work experience for medicine, other further reading.
Yeah, we all know that you're very all-rounded and have a lot of different diverse abilities, but for your personal statement and your interview to Cambridge, just make yourself look like a nerd and that'll work.
Okay. Yeah, so basically be really well-read in your subject. Okay, so moving on, how did you prepare for your standardized tests, if you have any? And also please tell us what tests you took.
So for me, there were 4 standardized tests. The first one is IELTS. So if you have good ability in English, there isn't really much you can prepare for it, and you don't really need to prepare anything for it. So just make sure you take the test at the appropriate time, since it has a time limit. I remember it's 2 years.
2
2 years. Yeah. So just take it like around October in your Form 4 year, and you should be fine. For my SATs, because although the UK schools don't require you to take SATs, I still took them, and I did not really prepare for my SATs, but I did some drills, did some past papers. There are some good SAT books you can buy from College Board, and there are a lot of courses on Khan Academy which help you prepare for SATs.
SAT 1 or SAT 2 or both?
Yeah, so if you want to take SAT 1s or SAT 2s, make sure you get a high score. If you don't, just don't send it to the UK schools, because they don't require it. For SAT 2s, choose the subjects that are relevant. So for example, for natural sciences, I took mathematics. Take the highest level, don't take the lower ones. They don't care about those. Take biology and take chemistry. So aim for the highest mark. I aimed for full marks in all of them. And yeah, just make sure your marks are pretty and the universities will be impressed. So the third standardized test was one called the NSAA, the Natural Sciences Aptitude Test. Yeah, it was something like that. So this is a test that is trusted by Cambridge to select natural sciences applicants. And to be honest, it was pretty hard, but apparently everybody got quite low marks. So just do the past papers. There are there are a lot of past papers online and different resources available. And its syllabus is mainly your high school syllabus. So no matter if you're studying IB or DSE, just make sure you are proficient with what they've taught in high school, and you should be good.
How's it hard then?
I did not know a lot of the questions, so I think they made it intentionally hard to help separate the applicants, who's good and who's not good. And we had very little time to do a lot of questions, so they were all MC questions, but some were very long, some were database questions, so you had to read a lot of data and give your conclusion and give your insights towards that set of data. So your critical thinking skills and comprehension skills. And we didn't really have enough time. I remember I left 6 or 7 questions blank, like out of 60 or out of 30, I forgot. But yeah, so just make sure you understand all the knowledge delivered to you. Even those that aren't taught, because we took the exams, like I remember in November, like on our last year in high school. So some of the stuff they haven't taught us in high school, but just make sure you understand those things so you can answer them in the exam. And the last one was a test administered by Moglen. So that's a very special test that is only available to some subjects and in some colleges. Yeah, so I had this test which tested me about like my mathematics skills, and I remember chemistry and biology skills. I had to write an essay about biology. So like, I remember it was about like, I'm not sure if I can say, but yeah, the test was quite hard too. They asked a lot of difficult questions, and there isn't really a way to prepare for them. So I can't talk about the test questions since we had this privacy thing to sign. But these questions are tricky, and just make sure you understand what you're taught at school, and it should be fine.
Well, I actually didn't know that you have to take an extra test because I didn't have to do it. Yeah, so for Cambridge and actually Oxford, Imperial, UCL, if you want to apply to their medical school, you have to do the BMAT exam. I believe for the NSAA exam, you can choose which subject within science, right?
Biology, physics, or chemistry.
Yeah. But for the BMAT, unfortunately, you have to you have to know the subject content of all of biology, chemistry, and physics. Well, for me, because I take the DSE and then I took three science subjects, so it wasn't quite an issue for me. But I know that some of my friends who only took maybe chemistry and biology, they really did struggle a bit with the physics part. So that's the section 2 of the BMAT. Yeah, for the section 1, it's the nightmare part. It's called, I think it's like critical thinking and stuff like that. So some of the questions, they give you a passage and then they ask you to identify the flaws of the argument, the assumption, the conclusion. And I really suck at that. So I did quite a lot of the past papers. So basically just doing the past papers will be sufficient. And also make sure you know all of the science knowledge in the section 2. And the last part is actually the section 3, which is you have to write an essay. It's just a short, I think around maybe 300 to 400 word essay. But just get your friends to do the same paper with you, and then you just exchange your papers, and then you mark your friend's paper. Yeah, just a little bit of collaboration, I think. They're going to give you constructive feedback. Yeah, hopefully.
There is a syllabus for each of these tests online, so make sure you read those before you revise and go into the test.
Oh yeah. You can tick off the content that you have to understand because you have the syllabus, right? If you just read through it and then you see which kind of specific points that you haven't covered before, and then you just focus on those. That will be sufficient, I would say. Yeah.
Nice, thank you. Okay, so moving on to the interview. So how did you prepare for the interview?
So we can't really talk about what happened inside the interview once again about this privacy statement, but we can talk about it in general. So Cambridge interviews, the Oxbridge interviews are always feared because people say they're very hard and abstract. And there's this commonly cited question, tell me about this banana. I think it was yeah. So I can only say that it's similar. It's not as horrible as it seems. And it's trying to test how you think. So the tutors aren't there. We call them the tutors, the
interviewers?
Yeah, the interviewers. They aren't here to make you feel bad or to break your self-esteem or to they're here to try to help you learn and to discover your interest and whether you are actually suitable to study at Cambridge. Because to be honest, not everybody is suitable to study at Cambridge due to its academic intensity and its high requirements for how you think and whether you have this active mind which is suited for the subject. So for my interview, they asked me some questions about different sciences. So since I was studying biological natural sciences, they asked me some questions about biology. They asked me some about chemistry. And it was mainly some open questions where I could try to just give my own views and to express and show them how much I know. And one advice that a lot of people give Cambridge interviewees is that think aloud, because the questions they ask require you to show your way of thinking. So, for example, let's use the banana question. So, tell me about a banana. So, at first you'll say it's yellow, it has a slight curvature, you can eat it, it has a peel, and it has flesh inside, it has seeds inside. So you start talking, and then they would ask you, so can you tell me more about the peel, like the composition of the peel? Do you know what chemicals are inside? So if you tell them about that, and then they'll ask you, for example, what's that chemical called? Do you know some different industrial applications for that chemical? Okay, let's talk about the flesh. Do you know, guess how much water is in that flesh? So they will go on like that, and it will be like an academic discussion. So you'll be firing your ideas over to the professors, and the interviewers, the professors will ask you more questions. So they will keep doing this until you eventually don't know how to answer the questions they ask. And hence, they will know your limit. So they will know, this interviewee, he knows a lot, but this is his extent. So they will get a comprehensive idea of how much you actually know and how much you love the subject, and how good is your ability to think critically and to think like a scientist. So that's for my interview. Let's pass the time to Enoch.
Yeah, the Cambridge interview is very, I think it's a bit structured. You start off with something that is manageable, something that's in your curriculum, within your curriculum. So they start you off with, maybe a bit basic scientific concepts, and then they start to ask you more about stuff that you may not be too familiar with. And then they give you maybe a little bit of extra information to guide you to provide a kind of maybe a quote-unquote correct answer, but there's no correct answer, but they would just try to give you extra information such that you can utilize this extra information and then to give another answer. So the reason why it's structured is because you start off with something basic, and then you build up on the knowledge that and also the information that they provide. And when you reach a point where you can't really think about anything, this means that you've been taken to that level, that high level where maybe others may not be able to achieve. So if you come out of your interview thinking that maybe you did very badly, it's probably because you reached that high level, and the professors are trying to test your limits, as Jason has said just now. Yeah. For my interview, I can only say it's very science heavy. I know other universities in UK for medical school applications, the interviews, they are more like clinical or maybe ethical. But I can only say for the Cambridge interview is very, very, very science focused. And so if you've written a lot of science stuff, like specific topics that you are interested in your personal statement, please make sure you really do know your stuff inside out, because they're going to drill you on it. And and also I think there's one thing you can do is to check out the professor's research interests. It's kind of a trick. So if they are very familiar with, say, immunology, so it might be a good idea to read up on some immunology topics before your interview. Yeah,
let me elaborate on that. So just be very, very prepared for the interview, especially what you write in your personal statement, because if you write about something you don't understand in a personal statement. So for example, I write about a book. I've only read its blurb and also its summary, but I have never read the insides. And it is very probable they will find the author of that book. So whoever wrote that book, they'll find that guy and come interview you. And when they ask you about the book they wrote and you don't know anything about it, then you're done. So just make sure you're prepared. Enoch raised a good point. So do a little research on the professors. They will give you the name list in advance. But I would advise against asking them questions about their research. So it sounds like a way to impress them, but it isn't really a good idea, because firstly, it's impossible for them to explain 20, 30 years of research in a very advanced field to a high school student who's attending a 30-minute interview. And secondly, if you ask questions and they ask you back and you don't understand, you're just gonna look stupid. So I'd advise doing that, because towards the end of the interview, they would ask you to ask, they would say, do you have any questions for us? And it's actually a smart thing to say, nah, I don't have any questions for now. It's a perfectly reasonable answer. If you really do, you can ask about the life at Cambridge or other more trivial matters, because the questions don't matter.
Yeah, regarding the fact that professors are going to ask you, is there any questions you have? I don't. I also don't advise reading up on the research and asking them about it. But I think maybe some questions you can ask are those that are related to the interview just now. So maybe you've touched on that topic and you still don't understand a certain part. So it might be a good idea. It might be a good idea to just to clarify on some of the points that you don't understand, such that this actually shows your interest in the topic that you're talking about, and it doesn't really sound it doesn't sound stupid, and you won't kind of you won't kind of
Mess up your
mess up your interview. Yeah.
Great. Okay. And then also about the interview, is there anything to add about your interview? Any advice you wish you had heard before the interview?
The advice I would give, and I hope that I had heard before my interview, is don't stress too much. It's perfectly reasonable to be prepared. Of course, like in all these university admissions, it's very important to be prepared and read up on your subject. But right before the interview, you should calm down, get ready for the interview, believe that you have a lot of knowledge in that subject, believe that you're prepared, and just have fun. Because after the interview, I actually thought that the interview itself was very enjoyable. The professors were very nice, and I felt like that I had learned something from the interview. So just don't stress about it too much. Prepare beforehand, but don't be too scared about it.
I would say that the professors, they were very nice. One thing to prepare beforehand is, the technical stuff. So you just don't want to, you just try out your Zoom beforehand, and also maybe try to practice with another person, because you have to elaborate on your ideas, and sometimes you may skip steps in your thinking process. You don't. You're just gonna say the final answer out without telling people how you arrived at that answer, how you derived at that answer. And so it's good to have someone to practice with, try to maybe explain some topics to them in advance, and try to just explain stuff in a step-by-step process. So that in your actual Cambridge interview, you also do this so that the professors know what you're thinking about. Yeah.
Thank you. And then the last question would be, do you have any final advice for people that are applying to Cambridge next year? Anything?
Cambridge sounds very prestigious. It is very prestigious, but if you make it, congratulations. If you don't make it, it really does not speak anything, and it does not reflect any part of your ability. So the interviews, the entire admissions process is very stressful, and if they reject you at the end, it only means that you might not be suitable to study at Cambridge. It does not mean you don't have the ability to excel in whatever field you're applying to. And I think this is the case for every university. So I got rejected from some universities, and it took me some time to accept that. But I think it's very important to accept what you have and put down what you don't. And yeah, that's my final advice.
You end up where you should be. Yeah.
Yeah, I would say because the process is so long, it's probably, if you count your work experience, your reading, it's probably going to be like maybe 2 to 3 years before your actual application starts. So don't try to be a perfectionist in like every admission test. So, I want to get a 6.8 in my section 1. I want to get a 8.2 in my section 2 for the BMAT. Don't do that. I think that's just gonna you're gonna burn out at the end. Yeah, just don't try and be perfect in every aspect of your application. It's just very tiring in that way. Yeah.
Okay, anything else to add? Nope. Great. Thank you guys so much for coming here today. And to my fellow listeners, I'll see you next week. Bye.
Bye.